The young man received decent training over the next few years. In addition to doing weightlifting at the club, he trained by himself as well. He worked as a blacksmith and made himself a special sledgehammer to exercise with. He also frequented the nearby military warehouses and exercised with scale weights. Sometimes he even lifted soldiers in preparation for his public performances. To strengthen his legs, he used to ascend the spiral staircase of the tower of St. Olaf's Church while holding 70-pound kettlebells at his sides or putting some buoy on his neck. In the morning, he used to take cold showers. In January 1898, after receiving words of encouragement from his friends and acquaintances, George headed to the capital of the Russian Empire. It was a new chapter in his life, and Krzyzewski played an important role in it. A member of Krzyzewski's weightlifting club, Ivan Lebedev, who later on became a famous organizer of wrestling matches in Russia, relates in his memoirs. All of a sudden, the door opens and the old doctor comes in, holding by the hand some broad-shouldered young man in a worn-out suit. The doctor then announces, "Gentlemen, my recommendation, Hackenschmidt from Yuriev, the star of Eastland, so to speak." I have to confess that our initial attitude to the guest was not particularly friendly. Back then, we had been quite antagonistic to newcomers from other cities. We had heard of Hackenschmidt and his best record, a 230-pound bench press, though in other movements he was relatively weak. While he was undressing, we had already prepared to whoop him. Once Hackenschmidt took off his shirt, we gasped as one. We had never seen such perfectly developed musculature before. No fat at all, shredded, biceps of about 18 inches, unbelievably well-developed lads. All his back was covered in balls of muscle. This newcomer, even before he approached the barbell, with his mere physique, totally annihilated us. He started bench pressing a 200-pound barbell, seemingly effortlessly, as if it was not a barbell, but some stick. 220, 240, and then 260, the same thing. That was a national record. It's really hard to describe what was going on there. We almost went nuts. We shouted, "Bravo! Hooray!" Embraced him. It was something. Our initial antagonism to him was no longer there, because it became quite clear to us that the newcomer was just head and shoulders above us. In a similar fashion, those events were related by another member of the club, Gvido Mayer, one of the strongest Russian weightlifters of that time. Krzyzewski provided Hackenschmidt with a room to live in and took care of everything. In Hackenschmidt's The Way to Live, he writes of his teacher repeatedly and dedicates him a chapter. Among other things, he writes the following: "Indeed, I may say that I owe, practically all that I have and am, to him. He it was who taught me how to live and how to train, and he it was who launched me on my career. Would that I possessed the eloquence to express my lifelong gratitude and my veneration for his memory. Nor would I indeed claim to be his chief and only debtor. In a sense, perhaps, I owe more to him than anyone else. But athletes in the world over are, one and all, directly or indirectly, in his debt. Well was he styled the father of athletics, for it was on that system which he first organized that every athlete of any prominence during the last 25 or 30 years developed his powers. On that system, and on no other, have Sandow, Saxon, Podubny, Pierre Bon, Zbyszko, Siegfried, Aberg, Lurik, Koch, Steinbach, and a host of others developed their powers. News of Hackenschmidt's arrival in St. Petersburg was in the Estonian press some time after. The Hercules from Tallin performed strength tricks in St. Petersburg to the public's admiration. Hackenschmidt pressed 264 pounds with his right arm 4 times, and after a short break he pressed 211 pounds. With his left he was able to press more than 176 pounds. He marched from victory to victory. The strong man from Tallin, Mr. Hackenschmidt, on January 14th, outlifted everyone in the St. Petersburg Club, even the greatly prepared mayor. It was incumbent on Hackenschmidt to lead a healthy life, stick to the regime, not to drink or smoke. Since he'd never had any interest in such bad habits, it was easy for him to follow the doctor's advice. On the other hand, he was allowed to eat anything he wanted. His main drink was milk, almost a gallon a day. His day usually started with cold showering, followed by weightlifting exercises, while the body was still wet. Training was his only care, and he gave it all. His strength started to increase very fast. At the beginning of 1898, he had already jerked a 275-pound barbell with both arms and a 242-pound barbell with his right. While on his back, he could press 332 pounds. He was also able to lift a barbell of 180 pounds from the ground, holding it behind his back. In February 1898, Baron Kister, another patron of weightlifting, organized a big tournament among the amateurs. Hackenschmidt won a few prizes at that event. Training at Krzyzewski's club was very all-round, producing harmonious physical development. On top of lifting weights, Hackenschmidt strived to perfect wrestling moves. An additional impetus to wrestling classes was constantly communicated by professional wrestlers attending the club. At first, of course, he was unable to pin elite wrestlers, which says his loss to Bulgarian wrestler Nikola Petrov. Apart from weightlifting and wrestling competition, Hackenschmidt participated in sports festivals displaying strength tricks. At one such festival, he restrained 2 horses and lifted 4 men with one arm. In April, an all-Russian weightlifting tournament took place in St. Petersburg. Hackenschmidt won the first place, followed by Sergei Eliseev. By the way, the next year, a world championship was organized in Milan. Due to the upcoming celebrations in honor of Franz Joseph, Emperor of Austria-Hungary, the first European weightlifting championship among the amateurs in Vienna was to take place. Hackenschmidt was appointed to take part in the event. To get used to a big audience and gain more experience, he was sent to Riga to participate in weightlifting events under an assumed name. There, he won the public's admiration. However, neither his real name nor his goals were a secret to the newspaper. Estonian Hercules from Tallin, Mr. Hackenschmidt, performed in Riga lately, where in local newspaper articles he was admired for his strength to carry 4 full-grown men with his one arm. At the moment, he is the strongest man in the Russian Empire and is going to become the strongest in the world. In Riga, he took revenge for his earlier loss to Kauder. This time he defeated him with ease. Before the European Championship, Hackenschmidt set a new world record, a 255-pound one-arm press, beating the record of Eugen Sandow, a German. Hackenschmidt went to Vienna for the European Championship with Guido Meyer, Alexander von Schmeling, and their mentor, Dr. Krzyzewski. Back then, there were no weight divisions in weightlifting. The first European champion became William Turk, an Austrian. For the Russian participants, the program of the event was somewhat unusual. It consisted of 10 different moves, many of which they hadn't practiced before the tournament. As a result, Hackenschmidt didn't take part in some of the moves, for example, the one-arm military press. Nevertheless, he managed to win the 3rd place and the bronze medal, 2nd place being won by another Austrian participant, Binder. During the championship, Hackenschmidt set a new world record, 288 pounds in the one-arm barbell snatch. He also outlifted everyone in the bent press, and for this feat of strength he was awarded a gold medal. The 3rd place, at such a serious event for a young athlete, was a great success. It should also be noted that the body weight of Turk, the winner, was 264 pounds, while that of Hackenschmidt only 196. Once the weightlifting part of the tournament was over, wrestlers made their way to the stage. To the audience's great amusement, the young man who had just competed against the elite of weightlifters was this time among the wrestlers. At the event, he was the only contender who took part in both disciplines. And what happened next was entirely unexpected. Here's the article from a newspaper. The Russian Hercules wrestled graciously. He completely dominated his opponents, was able to get any hold he wanted on them, lifted them in the air with ease, threw them to the mat and pinned them. His bout against Valish reminded the game of cat and mouse. In half a minute, the Austrian was pinned like a kid. All moves of the Russian showed phenomenal strength and speed. His nickname, the Russian Lion, perfectly described his strength and the manner in which he wrestled. Among his other opponents, Hackenschmidt pinned such renowned wrestlers as Hitler. It took him 5 minutes, and Burkhardt 2 minutes. He became the first European wrestling champion, which lay a great foundation for his international career. At the end of the same year, Hackenschmidt was invited to take part in the first wrestling championship of Finland, where the sport was becoming very popular. Hackenschmidt pinned all the contenders at that event, and in the finals, Carl Allen, best Finnish wrestler, which made George the first wrestling champion of Finland. Even though Hackenschmidt's hard wrestling training got in the way of his progress with the weights, he, nevertheless, managed to set a new personal record in 1899, that of the military press, 280 pounds. Now the time had come for military service. George was drafted and assigned to the Life Guards Regiment of the Tsar of Russia. However, he was soon discharged from military service on the grounds of poor health. In May 1899, a wrestling match between Hackenschmidt and Alexander von Schmeling took place for the title of the champion of Russia of 1898, because the previous match in 1888 ended in a draw. After 25 minutes, Hackenschmidt won. A few days later, another match between them took place, this time for the title of the year 1899. Hackenschmidt won again. After those wrestling victories, Hackenschmidt switched for some time back to lifting weights. He snatched 242 pounds, but at an attempt to bench press 308 pounds, he injured his right shoulder. Without paying much attention to that injury, he soon started his preparations for the upcoming Wrestling Championship of the World that was to be held in the autumn of 1899, Paris.